Good afternoon, dear students, and welcome to the next session on IELTS lessons. Before we start our lesson, I want to ask you one question. Can you look at the picture and answer these questions? What is it? And if you know, can you collect this puzzle picture? Any ideas? Okay. Great. Now, let's see. This is a newspaper sheep. A sheep that was made from newspaper. This is very interesting thing. We can collect the puzzle, but can we make the sheep itself from the newspaper? And do you know how to make it? Is it an easy to make the newspaper sheep or not? Today we are going to try to answer all those questions and to find how people solve the same things in IELTS Task 1. We're going to talk about process language and the process of making a newspaper itself. My name is Шаймаханова, and now let's start our lesson. The aim of today's session is to improve writing skills on IELTS Task 1. In the end of the lesson, you will be able to use language to describe processes, to identify the details of a diagram on process, and we also are going to recycle the vocabulary on describing processes. Now let's talk about some types of diagrams for IELTS Task 1. Do you know any of diagrams used for IELTS Task 1? Good, you know a lot about charts. But what about other types of diagrams? Here are some types of diagrams used in IELTS Task 1, together with charts. Can you write the names of these diagrams? Look very carefully. Excellent. Now let's compare our answers. The first is process, the main thing that we're going to talk today about. What about the second picture? It's a flow chart. Flow means step by step. Something is done step by step. What about the last one? What does it look like? Yes, it's a map. Describing maps. This is also a type of diagram used in IELTS Task 1. What kind of diagrams are these? Good, they are process diagrams, and we have two different types of process diagrams. The first is general sequence of events, and the second is specific sequence of events. What is the difference between them? General, when we have some general information and we're going to describe it. Specific, when we have not just information, but we have specific dates on the process. This is called specific sequence of events. The first is how to make the newspaper making process, paper making process. The second is how to write the news itself. And this will take you a lot of time, and this process needs special dates. You see here. Okay, so what is it? Look at this picture, please. Yes, this is how we make a daily newspaper. Do you remember that it was easy to make a newspaper sheep? But what about newspaper? Process of making a newspaper. Look at the timeline below, which shows the steps taken to produce a TV documentary. Why we're talking about TV documentary? Because this kind of thing is possibly to appear at any newspaper. How many steps can you find here? Good. Excellent. Now let's see together. What is shown here? Do you remember that this is a specific chart, specific diagram? Yes. The first is timeline. You can see the line with timing. The second, dates, exactly dates. Like you can see here the 21st of March 98. And actions for this specific date. And this is the sequence of events. The process is a sequence of events itself. And this is a specific sequence of events. Now, let's work with this timeline together. Read the list from A to O below that will appear below diagram and choose the sentences you need to describe the sequence of events that led to production of documentary. You need to work in pairs, and also please note that 5 of the sentences which are not suitable here. So, look at the timeline and try to find the right answers. I will read for you so that you can also listen to me and follow the timeline. Sentence A. The next stage was the fact finding, which was begun on 7th March. B. Not long afterwards, the program was edited. C. And the interviews were finally recorded 2 weeks later. D. The required funding was secured just over 4 weeks afterwards. E. The film crew were briefed. F. All the necessary research was done on 7th of March. G. The documentary was then televised at the end of the September. H. At the beginning of 1978, funding of the documentary on Lenin was applied for. I. The next phase, filming on location, began on 12 May and came to an end just over 4 weeks later. J. Contact was then made with experts, with Lenin. K. The experts were interviewed. L. The producer applied for funding of the documentary at the beginning of 1998. M. And the interviews were finally recorded 3 weeks later. N. The producer was chosen by the team. Look here very carefully. Who was chosen? And O. The production crew were selected by the producer the following day. Have you found those 5 sentences that are not suitable? Okay, now you have some more time to look, and now let's compare. The red typed words and phrases will help you to identify, are the sentences good or not good? The producer applied for funding of the documentary at the beginning of 1998. Can you see such information on the timeline? Excellent. Can you see the date? Good. The required funding was secured just over 4 weeks afterwards. Do you see this? Good. Okay. The production crew were selected by the producer the following day. Very good. The next stage was the fact finding, which was began on 7th March. That is great. Contact was then made with experts with Lenin. Excellent. The experts were interviewed. And the interviews were finally recorded 2 weeks later. Do you follow me? Good. The next phase, filming on location, began on 12th May and came to an end just over 4 weeks later. Have you found such information? Excellent. 4 weeks later, which date? Good. Okay, the next phase is the following. Not long afterwards, the program was edited. Good. And the documentary was then televised at the end of the September. Okay, now can you see and think about 5 sentences that are not suitable here? Very good ideas. Now let's compare. These are the distractors. The sentences that just distract your attention. The film crew were briefed. Is that right? All the necessary research was done on 7th of March. At the beginning of 1987, funding of the documentary on Lenin was applied for. And the last 2 sentences, and the interviews were finally recorded 3 weeks later. Was it 3 weeks or more? The producer was chosen by the team. Have you ever found the scenes when the producer was chosen, but not the team itself? Okay, now let's come back to this line chart again. We need to have the timeline itself, the dates, and the actions. And in this case, it will be a process, the sequence of events, the specific sequence of events. But if we don't have dates, but just actions, we can make a general sequence of events. Now I want you to work in small groups and to look at the words below and order them in one process. Okay, very good tries. Please try more. Good. Now let's see. This is the right answer. The first is taking timber. How we make the newspaper? We need the material, the raw material, and this is timber. Then we chop it, refine, hydropulp, wire, press, screen, and clean. But why these two are on the separate column, recycling and de-inking? Do you know? Now let's see. This one is for everybody, printing and distributing newspaper. Okay. Now you need to follow the explanation on how to make a daily newspaper. And this, you should think mostly about the IELTS task 1, how you're going to explain, how you're going to describe what kind of IELTS vocabulary you're going to use. Should your essay, should your describing be structured or not? Now let's have a look here. The first thing you need to do is to identify the part of the report. introduction, that is overall trend. Then you need to find the describing the process, the part on this, and you need to answer the following questions. Which tense and grammar structure are mostly used in this report? Okay, you can see the same diagram, and this diagram shows the process of making a newspaper. The material is taken from two places. Then it is passed through some machines to create the newspaper. Look at these words. Can you change some of them? Look very carefully because we will come back to them later. What kind of part is it? Is that introduction? Is that body? Or is that conclusion? We can see the overall trend here and some explanation. Yes, this is called introduction, where we can use present simple or passive voice. Okay. Introduction is not enough. We need to have some more information on how to make a daily newspaper. I told you to look at the word there. From two places means what? From two sources, and this is more academic one. Through some machines. What does it mean, machines? Through a series of machines. That is more academic one. Now I need you to complete this little passage where you should write a word that is missed. Let's look very carefully together and try to put the right word. Trees are cut down to provide timber. In the first machine, the bark is removed and the timber is chopped up into small pieces. The choppings are put into a mechanical refiner and here you put a word, a hydropulper, where they are mixed with water and made into a pulp. Okay, what are your ideas? Good. And subsequently means that this is the next step here. Following the explanation on how to make a newspaper, you need also to know the following things. You need to write the explanation itself. What will you write here? Okay, very good. Now let's compare the answers. At the next stage, the pulp, we stopped at pulp, is put into blend chest, where it is mixed with pulp from recycled paper. So do you remember when we were putting the words in right places, there was one little column where the word recycle appeared. And so we can say that we have two ways of making a daily newspaper. The one is to do all this process, and the second is to recycle. Now, let's move on. Can you add here some more words? But in order to do it, you need to change this part of the report to more academic one. Once we print the newspaper, it is sent to your news agent. How can you translate this into English language using some other really high academic vocabulary words? Okay, that are excellent and great ideas. Now let's look at the answer. Once the newspaper has printed, instead of we print the newspaper. It is distributed. Distributed means it is sent to your news agent to give you, for example, the newspaper or to buy it. And now you have a little task. You need to complete the report till the end. What is necessary for you to be done? Please do not forget to use academic language and present simple, present perfect, past tenses, and also past passive or passive voice. Or you can also use present passive voice. That is great. Now let's do the last task. Can you please complete the following using all those tenses and vocabulary? Okay, let's see at your ideas. Excellent. And now let's compare our answers. After the reader has finished with a newspaper, it is recycled. And this is the second process, do you remember? The recycling process first involves the paper being put into a hydropulper to turn it into a pulp. Can you find this phase on the chart? Excellent. The inking cell then extracts the ink. After that, the solution is put into a blank chest, and the whole process is repeated. So we can repeat and repeat this several times in order to get a newspaper. Okay, and now some questions for you to check. Have you learned and understood everything we did today? Do we need any conclusion when we describe a process? Have you noticed? Of course, we don't need any conclusion. No conclusion. Have we put our opinion about this process? No, there is no opinion, just a report, just a description. And what have we done? We have done today a report because we have described a sequence of general events. Why they are called general? Because there is no exact date on when the newspaper was done. Good. And this is your homework for the next session. You need to write a report at home. A report which will describe this picture. How to make a newspaper, a daily newspaper. Please, again, don't forget to use academic language style. Don't forget to use present simple, present perfect, or passive voice in your speech. And of course, don't forget about linking words to be used in your homework assignment. Now, let's reflect on our lesson a little bit. So, what have we learned today? What have we practiced? What was interesting for you and why? And did you like the lesson? And why or why not? Okay, thank you very much for your answers. Yes, that's right. We have known some more ideas on IELTS Task 1 because there are not only charts, but a lot of things like flow chart, like process, or a map. Excellent. Thank you very much. Look at the reference list here that will help you to find some more very valuable information for doing IELTS Task 1 and exactly doing your homework. Thank you very much. All the needed materials which were provided today at this session you may find at moodle.nas.edu.kz. Thank you very much. It was me, Dinara Shаймаханова, and see you next session on IELTS tasks. Goodbye.